Hello and welcome to today's yoga question. I'm Lizzie Lasater, and joining us from Australia is Georgia Lloyd. Hi, Georgia.
Hello, how are you?
So, Georgia is my millennial friend who is here to ask a few questions today about sleep and restorative yoga. She's also a vinyasa yoga teacher. So, what have you got for us today?
Okay, well, sleep in general is actually my favorite topic because I sleep and I love it. So my first question for you, Lizzie. So I notice in busy classes with students who have been working all day in particular, they tend to fall asleep. So what do you do to stop them falling asleep?
Okay, this is such a great question. So when we teach restorative yoga, we cannot prevent our students from falling asleep. In fact, I don't even really think that's part of our job. You know, we've put them in these intentionally extremely comfortable positions with all these props, and we create a warm, quiet, safe environment. So of course, our overtired urban dweller nervous systems, many of us, myself included, are going to take that opportunity for sleep. It's like someone walking through the desert and you give them a big jug of water and you say, but slip really slowly. You know, like some of our nervous systems in that moment, when we get a chance at rest, we're just going to go, I need sleep, because we're so overtired. So that's number one. It's not our responsibility as the teacher. I would also say it is a signal for the student themselves. Like if you are often or always falling asleep in Shavasana, that is a pretty clear sign that you need more actual sleep. So it really should not, like sleep researchers tell us that it should take at least 15 minutes for us to fall asleep. And if we're falling asleep more quickly, it means that we have a sleep deficit or that we're sleep deprived. I actually just heard this podcast about insomnia, and it really scared me because with the twin babies who are almost 1 now, you know, I'm still getting up in the night. And so like technically, according to this psychiatrist definition, I have clinical insomnia. Such prolonged. I know, more than 3 months of disturbed sleep. So my point is, in terms of restorative yoga, it's an interesting sort of indicator for ourselves as a student or for as a teacher, for you to kind of maybe gently point out to your students, if they're consistently falling asleep, that it might be a sign of a larger need for sleep, which should be taken care of outside of the restorative yoga room. That is something they need to address through their sleep hygiene, through going to bed earlier, drinking less alcohol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the boring things we know about getting more sleep, turning off our devices, blah. So the last thing I would say on this is that sleep is not the goal of restorative yoga. Sometimes like we conflate that or confuse that, especially when we're new to the practice. It might seem like, well, great, I'm lying here and getting cozy, so like falling asleep is just a bonus. But actually, when we sleep in a practice, we're bypassing so much of the experience of the pose.
Yeah.
We know that like rest and sleep are distinct physiological states for the brain, and we actually need both. So what's really interesting in our current, I always say like urban dweller craziness, many of us are not actually getting rest. We are sleeping at night, but throughout the day, we don't take periods of real rest. What used to be sort of a siesta in the afternoon, for example, now is replaced. Maybe you're tired after lunch and you have 20 minutes, but we just lie down on the couch and scroll through Instagram.
I believe that.
Guilty. So that's not real rest. And rest is actually a really important function for the brain that we need. And interestingly, rest helps us to sleep. So what I always say, sometimes people ask, if I do restorative in the evening, will I not be able to sleep? That has not been my experience, because I really see that rest prepares us for sleep, helps us to wind down. And when we're in the state of Shavasana, in this restorative yoga state, when we're still awake and conscious, what we're doing is a form of meditation, we could say, or where it's a meditative state where we're watching and witnessing and accepting and forgiving and all of these really important, powerful words and experiences. And that we jump right over if we go from lying down in Shavasana straight into sleep. Does that make sense, Georgia?
Yeah, I get that. I feel like you've also opened a bit of another door for me. I've got a few more questions and following up. So then for like going back to that sleeping student who needs some rest, and we need to broach that topic, are you, if they're not aware that they are sleeping so much and perhaps even snoring in the class, are you going to take them aside after and acknowledge it for them? Because we know I do not like uncomfortable situations, but is that their best thing for me to do, is to take them aside and check in?
I would recommend that. If you have a regular student who's falling asleep every time in Shavasana, I would recommend gently saying something to them, just giving them that feedback, because they may not be aware of that, or they may think it's wonderful, it's their nap time, especially with snoring, because snoring can be an indicator of sleep apnea. So it can be on the border of something that's unhealthy. Also, I'm pretty strict about snoring in class. I really don't let snoring go on for very long. I try to catch it when I'm teaching, because it disturbs the other students. Like,
it can be painful to hear.
And you just can see the people around them stiffening. And I know when I'm a student and someone's snoring, sometimes it's just like
that chalkboard, it's like nails scraping. If you tune into it, you're like, I'm here now.
And it highlights for me how I'm like, how are you so relaxed right now? We've been in this pose for 2 minutes and I am not relaxed yet. And I'm still thinking about all these things. And it like, it's a trigger for me of like a loud, sort of noticeable moment where somebody else is having a deeper experience than me. So no, as a teacher, I have a few little techniques where I will just stand up and walk towards the student. Often that does it to help them stop snoring and wake up, actually. Or I walk around the student, or I will, and as a very last resort, I might gently touch like their foot, something very, and not the head, not something where they're going to startle, but give them a tiny bit of feedback. Or I might take a folded blanket, and like lay it across them, something that, across their legs, something that is, but usually it doesn't take that much. That's quite extreme.
Yeah. And I feel like when people are aware, like I know I have fallen asleep by accident. If I catch myself having fallen asleep, I am aware to bring myself up, be present in what I'm feeling, try and prevent that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm prepared now for the snorers and the sleepers. Thank you. I do have one more question. I feel like I am like rallying these questions, but so back to, will I sleep well at night if I've done a restorative practice that evening? Do you have like a rough amount of time between the time you finish your practice, the time you go to sleep? Do you eat in that time, or do you use that as like decompression time, or do you use that as a segue, get home, get into bed? Let's get to sleep.
I think it all depends on your schedule and your kind of your needs, or what you're reaching to the practice for. I love to do a restorative pose. There are that when there's kind of that physical aching exhaustion in my body when I come home, or now I don't go anywhere, but when now for me, it's like when I put the babies in bed at 7 and I close the door, and then I walk out into the living room and I'm longing for some relief. And so sometimes there's nothing else that I want in the world except for a glass of wine. It's just like, I need this. But sometimes I think, I'm going to get into the bathtub, or sometimes I think I'm going to do a Shavasana. And so for me, it fits really well, not right before bed, but as a way, exactly the way many people use, for example, a glass of wine as a transition when they get home. So for me, I like it as a transitional, like letting my body let go, and then I move into the rest of my couple hours of evening before bed. What do you find? Do you ever practice in the evening, Georgia?
I do, because I feel like I used to have this concept that I can't relax in the morning, which I realize is actually a perfect time to relax. But out of habit, I practice in the evening, and reality's changed now. So we're all practicing at home. So your yoga mat is not far from your bed. So I feel like everything shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
So figuring out the new normal.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I'll say before we close is just that one thing I love is to look for in my day these kind of squeeze points for restorative yoga. So I notice for me, I practice the best when I'm alone in the apartment, which basically means like when Nico's gone and the kids are sleeping, or someone, our wonderful nanny has taken them out for a walk or something. So I need to have real quiet. I don't love it if like Nico is puttering around or even just on his phone or something, but in the same general space, I don't go as deep in my practice. So those squeeze points for me are moments when I know, oh, I just put the boys down for a nap. Nico's run out for some errands. I've got 45 minutes. And that helps me to get on my mat. Because it's like, if I don't do it now, then the kids are going to wake up, then Nico's going to come back, and blah, 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 blah. And so I try to look for these little pockets or bubbles of silence in my day and use them to encourage me. If I know, okay, today I want to do one restorative pose, then I will look for that space to slide it in.
Save the scroll, get on the mat.
Such a good place to end. Georgia Lloyd, thank you so much.
Thank you for answering all the questions.
Okay, so if you like this type of conversation, if you want to stay connected, please go to lizzie.yoga, www.lizzie.yoga, and jump on my Sunday Savasana Series newsletter. Namaste.
Hey, see ya.
Ciao.